Good evening, everyone. I will call the meeting to order. And Councilman Shetty, if you're going to lead us in prayer.
Heavenly Father, like always, we thank you for the blessings that you bestow upon us individually, collectively, as a community, Lord. But currently, right now, Lord, we would like to take a moment of silence to remember Mayor Holene's family, but especially the loss of his mother, Carol Holene. Lord, we thank you for the people you put in our lives, the parents you give us, and the siblings and the family and the friends that get us through seasons in life. So we just lift up the Holene family right now to experience your peace in this time of loss. May they reflect on the blessings that you have given them through their parents over the decades, Lord. And so just lift their family up in Jesus' name. Also, Lord, we pray for this community as we are moving forward to get a new city manager, moving forward to review even that city manager form of government. And so we thank you for all those that are in the process of in the committee to hire and in the committee to do the reviewing process of what has worked, what may not have worked, what we can improve on. And so we just pray to continually guide them in their decisions to further lead this, to get the city and to keep us moving forward, upward and onward, if you will, and into the years to come. And also just pray safety over our street department as they will be potentially out working the streets here in the days to come. So we just pray safety over them and all who are on our streets, from the police to the fire department to street and anyone else. So we just pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Interim City Manager Bob Zine, would you do the roll call?
Yep. Holene, absent. Jurens? Okay. Peters?
Here.
Shetty?
Here.
Tupper?
Here.
Bueller? Absent. Danforth?
Here.
Thank you.
I'll look for motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Dan and second by Danforth. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion carries. Now is the time and place for anybody that's here for the open, something that is not on tonight's agenda, to come forward and please state your name and
Thanks. Just have to be smarter than the technology. My name's Doug Allen, 204 Lewis and Clark Trail here in Watertown. I have two issues tonight that I'd like to visit a little bit about. The first is 3rd Avenue, and I've been in front of the council before and talked about 3rd Avenue, and I just wanted to really provide a little bit of an update and also just what some of my concerns are that remain. As you know, with the creation of the ice arena, we've seen quite a bit more traffic on that road. And I've met with, I've talked to the Cottington County Sheriff, Brad, and indirectly with the police. And I just want to say that both of them have been very helpful in helping me understand what the issues are. I've also met with 2 supervisors of the township who have also shared with me what their concerns are about that. Because basically I asked whether we couldn't do something about the speed limit. The speed limit on township roads is 55 miles an hour. That's pretty fast when you've got 30 or 40 cars coming from the ice arena. And I get it, the road is really rough. It's multiple surfaces from gravel to crushed asphalt. And it's kind of like being in a boat on the lake where if you're going a certain speed, it could be quite rough. And if you go faster and get up on top of the waves, you kind of skate along. Well, a lot of people are choosing to get up on the waves and move pretty fast through there. And again, my concern is with people that run their dogs there and people walk on that road, and you've got the bike path that cuts right across 3rd Avenue there. So what I can report is that the township has let me know that it's not a priority for them to lower that speed limit, that it takes a couple of meetings and it's not on the top of their list. That doesn't mean they're not willing to do that, and I hope that they will continue to pursue that so we can get a more reasonable speed limit there. The final thing I'll say about it is that there's a lot of trash. And again, I think that the police have talked to the superintendent at the ice arena, and they've talked to the coaches, parents, and others about that. But if you drive that road, you're going to see cases of Busch Light cans rolling around in the ditch and on the road. And I think that it's probably underage drinking. I can't imagine that people would want to jettison the evidence unless they were underage. And so that remains a concern. I've talked to some people in my neighborhood about possibly doing a spring pickup and walking the ditches and doing that kind of stuff, but it really doesn't look very good. And I don't know what we can do about that, but it remains a concern as well as the speed. So that's kind of where we're at right now with it. But I wanted to thank the police and the sheriff for being willing to have a conversation about it and try to do something for public safety. The second thing I want to talk about has to do with the search for the city manager. And I had some conversation with Kyle this morning. He followed up with me. I think he followed up with interim city manager Bob Zine, and the position has not been posted on the city's website, on the municipal league, on all the places that those positions are normally posted. I mean, I don't think we've ever had a city position that wasn't advertised that way. And it concerns me because I think that the search firm that you hired, I don't know where they advertised, whether they just did that on their website, but when I followed up, the response I got was that that the HR director, Darcy, was waiting for that search firm to provide her with the posting so that she could post it. And when I went to the Robert Half website to look and see if it was there, it wasn't there. And it's nowhere to be found. So I don't know if that means that Robert Half posted it on their website and kept it open for a couple of weeks and closed it. It just doesn't seem like a very open and transparent process. And maybe you can clarify what that process looks like. But, you know, I just think that, you know, a normal process would be that people could find and apply for the job. I mean, nobody internally has seen the posting either. So if there is somebody that was maybe within the city that wanted to apply for it, it really, I don't know how they figured that out. And basically, I mean, we're paying Robert Half a lot of money. And if they only posted it in one place, that just doesn't seem to be a very thorough opportunity to recruit the best candidates possible. I mean, how do we know we're getting the best candidates if they've only looked at one small pool of applicants that basically are within their sphere of influence? And I don't think Robert Half has ever run a search for a government position before, a city government position. And so maybe they don't know about that process. But we've already had some issues, I think, relative to transparency with the council. And I'm not pointing fingers or blaming anybody for that, but I think it's useful for us to make sure that we have an open and honest search here, even if you think you already know who the best candidate for the job is. And I know when Mayor Holeen was here and spoke when we hired Robert Half, he said that he already knew of at least a couple of people that he thought were going to apply, that he'd be happy with either one of them. Well, okay, but don't we want to have a completely open search? Even if there are two people that you think are going to be absolutely the best, how do we know if we don't really recruit from a broader range? I just think that we need to be more transparent in terms of the process, and maybe you can help me understand where the process is at, how it's going, what's happening, because I don't think the public really has any idea. And one final thing about that is that the mayor also said, I don't think we really need to do any public meet and greets with the finalists. I think we do need to do some public meet and greets. It's not that you as the council who makes the decision will necessarily get any, great input from those meet and greets, but the community, it's important for the community to know this is what our new city manager, potentially, however many candidates, this is what they're like. This is how they interact with the public. That's kind of an important part of this job. And we really don't want somebody that doesn't interact very well with the public. So I'd argue we should do that again. I think it was done when the previous manager was hired, and I think we should do it again, just for the benefit of the public. So I don't know, maybe you can help answer some of my questions. Where are we at? What's happening? Where's it been posted?
Well, typically, we don't use the open forum to get into discussion, but I will comment on a couple things. That the transparency, there's been plenty of transparency. I've been on the radio myself and talked about it. Everybody that's ever been on the radio, and they ask us questions about it. Robert Half, I believe, we've only signed that contract 2 weeks ago. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, so we haven't even gave them a chance to get their stuff out. So I think that's a little premature of asking them to have it all over the countryside. So they came very, very, very highly respected from a group of great business people in Watertown, so.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I'm not being critical of the folks that were on that search committee that Reed put together. I know Rob, I know Liam, I know many of the people on that. They have the best interests of Watertown at heart. I'm just saying, what's the plan then? So you're telling me, Randy, that it hasn't been posted yet, and it will be, and I'm happy to give them time to do that. Yeah. I just thought that it was already moving down the road, that they were vetting candidates and those kinds of things, and maybe that's not true.
I don't think that's to that point yet. We just hired them, and they're going through the information that we sent them.
Okay.
So they can get something posted.
Yeah.
So, but thank you for your comment.
Very much. I appreciate your response too, Randy. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And Mr. Allen, if you want to stay there, I'm going to be discussing that a little bit later in the agenda, so. Okay, presentations and reports. We do have a brief update from the Home Rule Charter Midterm Review Committee, Kyle Lallam, and is it just Kyle?
Yeah.
That's enough.
I'll be the one to speak, but I do, thank you very much, Kyle Lallam. I am chairing the midterm review, Home Rule Charter Midterm Review Committee. With us today, I have five other colleagues with me. I've got Jan DeBerg, Elliot Conander, Nate Graff, Dan Gabriel, and Steve Thorson. Absent from our group this evening is Alicia Holine for obvious reasons. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity to join you and give you a brief update as to what we have accomplished to date. I would also like to thank the city staff at all levels for their taking time out of their day or out of their personal time to answer the specific surveys that we sent out. I'll get into that in just a little bit. And then I would also like to commend specifically Kristen Bobzian. She has allowed us time to meet with the department heads at a department head meeting and has been very gracious in allowing us to perform our duties as outlined and what I'll get into here in just a moment. So as it relates to the Home Rule Charter Midterm Review Commission, the purpose of our group is to take a deep dive into the function and operation of the city after changing to a strong mayor form of government, or from a strong mayor form of government to a city manager form of government. This includes reviewing the Home Rule Charter governing document itself, potentially gathering information from former and current council members, in addition to current and former city employees. Our goal was to evaluate and assess the effectiveness of the city manager form of government in achieving the intended outcomes after 4 years of implementation, as well as identifying areas of strength, weakness, and opportunities for improvement, and coming forward with recommendations necessary to make necessary adjustments to optimize this system for long-term success. We did, as I mentioned at the opening, we did do a survey that was broken out specifically into 3 categories. We did one survey specific to the 7 elected members of the governing body for the city of Watertown. We also did a questionnaire for department heads and management staff within the city government structure, and then also a separate questionnaire that was sent out to the city employees itself. And to date, our deadline, let me back up, our deadline for council was to have their responses by the 21st of February. And our deadline for the remaining balance of the 2 questionnaires was to be completed by last Friday, the 28th. And I am happy to report that we have gotten obviously 100% response from council and the governing body, so thank you for that. As far as the department heads and management team, I was notified today that we've gotten over 90% response to our questionnaires. They're very specific. And then from the staff itself within the city of Watertown, we've achieved almost 30%. And our goal at the front end of this was to try and get 20% response. So it really is a testament to those that work for the city. So we appreciate that. The questionnaires were done outside of the city. The only access that we had with city was to gather the city staff's emails and elected governing bodies' emails so that we could send out these questionnaires. All of the information that comes back has been done completely anonymously. And all of the information that we will bring forward in our public presentation will also be redacted as not to identify any entity or individual within our public report, because that is outside the purview of what we wanted to do. And we wanted to make sure that we allowed both all 3 levels, council, department heads and management, and then also the line level employees, the ability to be candid in their responses. And you'll see that when we come forward. Our updated upcoming timeline, we have scheduled in-person interviews with the 7 elected governing body members, the council and mayor himself. Those will happen on March 5th and March 7th, so Wednesday and Friday of this week. Those in-person interviews will happen next week. On the 11th, our group has reached out to retired Chief Justice Dave Gilbertson, as well as the Brookings City Manager Paul Brazzino, to garner their insight and perspective and help us coordinate some of the recommendations that we will bring forward to this governing body in our final presentation. With the truncated responses and, like I said, redacted responses from all 3 levels of our survey for a public presentation at this council, in this council chambers at the first meeting in April, which is April 3rd of 2025. As it relates to Mr. Allen's question, we have been in correspondence with the hiring committee that has been formulated by the mayor as well to make sure that we give them all of the information that we've gathered as well. Again, we will be redacting some of the specifics that are in there that could be identifiers, but we wanted to make sure that the hiring committee has all of the information that we got as well. So that way they could prepare the hiring firm to know what types of positives and what opportunities we have lying before us, what we have experienced as far as strengths and maybe some opportunities that were missed in the first one, so that we wanted to share that with those, that group as well, so that they could send that on to Robert Hath as well. And also additionally, when we give them the summary of information, we feel that it would be important that they have that because they could ask some very pointed and specific situational questions of those potential candidates, whether they're local or from abroad, as to how you would handle this or have you had experience with this and those types of things. So we felt it was very important to bring that information forward, not just to the council and to the citizens of Watertown that overwhelmingly voted in favor of this change in form of government, but also to make sure that we gave it to those individuals that were going to be heading and spearheading the next search for that. So with that, we'll just close with saying that our findings to date have basically shown us two things: an overwhelming support by council, department heads, management, along with city staff in the responses, and a positive light to continue with the city manager form of government. It's overwhelming. And secondly, that the city of Watertown is blessed to have some of the hardest working, most dedicated city employees that are out there. And they truly care about this community and the long-term success of Watertown. And that will be apparent when we make our presentation on the 3rd. Thank you very much.
Stay up there for a second, Kyle. Sure. Anybody from council have any comments? No? Well, I'm just going to make a couple comments. First off, thank to you and everybody on the committee. And your work isn't done. It's just basically a good start, put it that way. But my hat goes off to all the city employees, all the city staff. It tells you the passion, and just like you just basically said a minute ago, it tells you the passion of the employees we have at this city. And, you know, to get all 7 council members and 90% of the department heads, those are huge numbers. You know, and that's one thing unique about Watertown, because if you go back some of the surveys we've did over the past 10 years on different items, it's always been an overwhelming response that we get from the community. So it is our community, and I'm glad that people do reach out and do those kind of things. So thank you guys for all your hard work.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, we're fortunate to have, you know, like you said, I mean, we do have a lot of work to do. We've got a very limited timeline, but that was on purpose, right? It was very diligent. You know, we're fortunate because we've got on our group, I mean, we've got somebody that was council president and former mayor under the strong mayor form of government with Steve Thorson there. He brings some valuable insight. You know, we've got 3 members on our commission that were on the original Home Rule Charter committee that made the proposal to the voters of Watertown in 2019 that ultimately led to the change in 2021 with Nate Graff and myself and Dan Gabriel. And then obviously Jan DeBerg got a ton of history with the community of Watertown, has worked closely with, you know, the city and private entities. Elliot Canander's been super great. He brings a lot of passion. He's newer to Watertown, and by newer, I mean he's been here for 10 years, but he's got a ton of insight, but he does follow local governance. So, I mean, everybody that's there, you know, is really working for the ultimate goal, and it's been reinforced by the responses that we got. And you're 100% right, Randy. I mean, with our goal being 20% and the city staff blowing that out of the water with almost 30%, and then over 90% for the department heads and management team, it's a true testament to this community, and we look forward to bringing forward our recommendations and making our final presentation in April. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. We will move on to 9A, contracts and change orders. Approval of development agreement. Amendments for Andrews 3rd, Harmony Hill 3rd, Isabella's 1st, Cax 4th, Dakota Dunes 4th, Prairie's Edge Estates, River Ridge Estates 7th, Lake Willow Creek 1st, Valley View 2nd, Valley View 3rd, to extend completion date for 1 year. Justin Peterson.
Thank you. This is a follow-up from the work session where we had a discussion about developments. What this motion will do is extend the completion date for these developments for 1 year, so until March 3rd, 2026. With that, I'll stand by for questions.
I am looking for a motion to approve. Yep. Motion, second. Any discussion? Councilman Shetty?
Yeah, basically, we had a good conversation about this, even though we, in our work session previously, there still is, some challenges on how to help keep things moving forward. So I appreciate the work staff is doing to, this just buys us some more time, help these developments get their, ducks in a row and get things finished up, then also gives us some time to kind of dial in what can be done to help work together with developers to move these projects forward. So thanks for all your work.
Councilman Peters?
So it's a 1-year extension, right, Justin? Do we have a pretty high level of confidence it'll be done in a year? And the reason I'm asking is because is it worth extending these a touch farther? I just want your insight on that.
I think it is very possible for each of these developments to be done. There's many of them are very, very close. So
It would follow up.
Go ahead, follow up.
Is there a TIF involved on that property? In this development?
Any of them?
I don't know if there is any TIFs involved
Yeah,
with these.
sorry, I wasn't specific.
The
I
lakes,
was
maybe?
Willow Creek might, because Willow Creek might, 19, maybe.
okay.
We're all looking at Brandy.
Yeah, I guess that was a loaded question. I forgot there's a ton of
Brandy says no, no. Oh,
I don't think so.
on it. None of these. No tips on any of them. Oh, okay. All right, thanks.
Councilman Danforth?
Thank you, Randy. So, Justin, I know that as Councilman Shetty has just said, this is kind of our Band-Aid to get us through and get these things cleaned up. But will there be recommendations to us on procedural and process and such? And I know interim city manager Bob Zine had sent out an email, I think last week or something. And so will that be coming to us so that we can, all right, we'll get these, I think it's 10 or some number. We'll get them managed here, but on a going forward basis, then let's look at our process. Let's figure it out. We talked about maybe a tiered system and a process for follow-up and kind of driving the obtaining of information and updates. Is that coming? And if it is, approximately what kind of time frame are we talking about?
Yes, it is coming. There's some proposals like the tier system in Title 24, which will be seen before Planning Commission March, I forget the date, 20th, March 20th, and then the recommendation will come to council April 3rd.
So that would be, yeah, so that would be for the tiered portion of this?
Yeah, there's a couple other minor changes, but that's the biggest change of the Title 24.
Procedurally, will that change internally from what we've done in the past? Because I think that's part of the battle, personally.
We're trying to we're continually trying to improve our processes. So the Title 24 changes doesn't necessarily change those processes, but the staff is working on improving it. And one of the first steps is we hope to meet with all these developers and kind of get a schedule and priorities. And some of the developers have more than one, so kind of get their priorities and how they move forward. But we're trying to improve those processes as we speak.
Okay, and if I can, there was discussion about bonding. Is that out the window? Or is that still being discussed? Is that part of the process or the ordinance change? Where is that at?
Bonding is off the table
Okay.
right now. So
Okay, all right. Well, thank you.
Councilman Jerns, do you have anything? Evidently not. Interim city manager, if you could take the roll call, please.
Jurens, Jurens?
Do you want me to vote for him?
Yeah. Okay, we'll come back.
My bad, my bad, had to put a security code in.
So, Jurens?
I'm in the affirmative, yay.
Okay. Peters?
Aye.
Shetty?
Aye.
Tupper?
Aye.
Danforth?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. On to 9B, approval of bid award for the 2025 PMPA asphalt mill and overlay large patches project number 2502 to Dunick Inc. in the amount of just over $1.4 million. City Engineer Peterson.
Thank you. This is our annual mill and overlay project. We received three very, very good bids. Actually, the bids came back to reflect numbers that are in like 2023 bid numbers, so they were very, very good. This project is budgeted in two accounts. There's the land, what I call the landfill road, which is the road going out to landfill. That is budgeted in the sanitary or solid waste fund, and then the remaining areas are budgeted in the street funds. I guess with that, I'll stand by for questions.
Look for a motion to approve that. Motion by Councilman Peters, second by Councilman Danforth. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in, I think we can just do. Yes. Councilman Danforth?
We're sizably under what was projected, which is, I'm assuming, what was budgeted, correct? Are we looking to expand that at all, or are we not? We've done that in the past at times.
I will just say that City Engineer Peterson and myself have had a conversation regarding that, and I think what our plan will be is to wait. We're having our April work session regarding council priority projects. I think that's a great time to talk about what to do with those extra savings of this project. And then could we put those funds towards something else that's a priority? So we'll be talking about that in the future.
Is this broken down, Justin, on how much is for the landfill road versus how much is for the, I'm talking dollars here now. What's the breakdown there?
The landfill road is about $454,000, and then the streets is the remainder, which is $952,000.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Peters?
I got a question for you, Justin. I'm looking at this number and it says it's 43% lower than the estimate of what we projected. I'm getting a little PTSD from the golf course endeavor when that bid came back and it was so much lower and we found out that we forgot something later. Are we 100% sure? I'm not doubting anybody's or questioning anybody here. I just want to be absolutely certain that we're on target here. That's a big reduction.
Yes. When I saw the numbers, I had kind of the same reaction, like, gotta make sure everything's there. We did confirm with Dunick, and they are okay with their bid. What makes me pretty confident is that we had all three bidders very, very close to each other. So I'm comfortable with it.
Councilman Jurgens, do you have any questions?
I'm good. Good discussion.
Okay. Interim City Manager, do the roll call, please.
Okay. Jurgens?
Aye.
Peters?
Aye.
Shetty?
Aye.
Tupper?
Aye.
Danforth?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we'll move on to C, approval of bid award for the 2025 crack seal and chip sealing project, project number 2506, to Asphalt Preservation Company in the amount of just over $536,000. City Engineer Peterson.
Okay, thank you. This is the annual crack and chip project, and we got three bids for this one as well. this, and they're under budget, this one by 6%. The project is budgeted between streets, airport, bike trails, and there's county parking lots, which we had a MOU a few meetings ago, in which the county would be paying roughly $38,000. And with that, I'll stand by for questions.
Look for a motion. That is first and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye. I think we can. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of the change order number 3, final for the taxiway and ag arena improvement projects. Project number 2227 with JJ Earthworks for decrease in the amount of $66,505 for new contract price of $2,684,000. City Engineer Peterson.
Thank you. This is the final change order for the egg spray project. It's an adjustment of final quantities, includes a reduction in dewatering, some additional bedding material, and then an extra manhole connection. The majority of this project is eligible for reimbursement through the FAA. There's an item later on that the utilities portion is not, and we're dealing with that with a cost recovery, but we're under budget. So with that, I'll stand by for questions.
We're gonna kind of like you tonight, you keep coming in under budget, so. Just, do I have a motion? Motion by Councilman Danforth, second by Councilman Peters. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This one I might have to take a deep breath before I start reading it. Ordinance first reading. First reading of the ordinance 25-02 zoning text amendments to chapter 21-29 CL Lake Commercial District, chapter 21-30, or CL1 Lake Adjacent Commercial District, new district, chapter 21-31 CL2 Lake Proximity Commercial District, which is a new district, chapter 21.58 CLX Lake District Overlay, which is a new district, chapter 2105 establishing the district, chapter 21.01 Summary of District Regulations, and chapter 21-90 Definition of a Revised Ordinance of the City of Watertown. Community Development Manager Hanton.
Thank
Wow,
you,
that's a
Councilman
lot.
Pepper. Yeah,
That's a lot.
that was a very long title. And also, I guess it's fitting because the CL district has had a lot of discussion. So this is the compilation of ordinance amendments that the subcommittee that has been working on looking at the CL Lake Commercial District has landed on to try to make the district usable and addressing the concerns that there were with the existing CL district. So I guess just to give a little bit of history and then who was a part of this committee that took time out of their schedules and met to kind of unpack this ordinance and see where they could place things to make this usable. As council's familiar, we did not, we had multiple proposals for the CL district as it exists. We've actually made an amendment to the original CL district that was approved in 2020 that I'll touch on a little bit too, on where we're landing with that. But there was the concerns of what could be with what was allowed as uses within the CL district as it exists today. So this subcommittee is looking at, or was looking at ways to make the CL district tolerable so that there weren't the concerns of the types of uses, being that the lake is primarily zoned as R1 single-family residential, but also understanding that it is a lake and to offer some availability for commercial uses that are lake-related, complementary to the lake. So, kind of to start with the CL district, as it was approved in 2020, that will revert back to the way that it was originally approved for the uses. And then there was clarification as far as impervious versus lot coverage. We'll keep the lot coverage, that is the 50% lot coverage, just for term, like that's just a more correct term to use and there's not the confusion. But the uses as that district was approved in 2020, those will come back because we tried to make a quick fix and we moved some of those down to conditional. So now that we've looked at and have created additional CL districts, so the CL original district will still exist. It's closed, so there's only 3 properties that are zoned CL, and they will be able to utilize that district as is. And then there are 2 or 3 actually, 2 real conventional zoning districts, which is the CL1, that is the lake adjacent commercial district, and then the CL2, which is the lake proximity commercial district. And then there's an overlay district that we are calling CLX, and that is the lake commercial overlay district. And that one has additional uses, but offers a way that applicants can be transparent to uses that may be more intrusive to existing residential neighborhoods. So I'll pull up the map here and actually these computers updated, so I can't open the end drive, but no, I'll be fine for this one. So this map does not have the updated naming that we discussed at the Planning Commission. We had started with CLA and CLP, just with adjacent and proximity, but we're gonna go back to our typical naming or nomenclature, whatever, CL1 and CL2. So that has been updated. And then we just made a small change just to these properties that are on the north side of Highway 20 because, I mean, they're quite a ways. They're still within the boundary of what it could be, or it could be zoned CLP, but I just didn't want there to be confusion in the future that those lots couldn't also have the opportunity to potentially go C3 highway commercial because they're adjacent to the highway. So that's the only change with the map. As far as the districts go, let me just point out here, just since everyone's not as familiar, if anyone's watching, the yellow is the lake adjacent district. And what this shading is representing is what these properties could be zoned. They don't have to be zoned this. If you're zoned, or if it's shaded yellow, you could apply as long as you meet all the other minimum qualifications or minimum requirements outlined in these ordinances. So, or if you're green, then you could apply to rezone to be lake adjacent or lake proximity commercial. I think that's how we worded it. I could have those words just a little. Lake adjacent, yeah, so lake proximity commercial district is that green area. So there's not a lot of differences, I guess, really between the lake adjacent and the lake proximity, the 2 new districts that are created. We have our permitted uses and special permitted uses. That's something new with this, with these districts, is that we're implementing design standards so that as long as all those qualifications are met, that some of these uses that have in accordance with sections, that those can be special permitted, or those are special permitted uses. So if they are able to meet all of those, then they do not have to go forward to any board. or that's, I guess, really, that's the only reason, or that's the only way that they can use that use. Let me clarify that. As long as they're meeting all of the design standards. And then, I'll just go through as far as the permitted and special permitted uses. We have lake retail and service establishments, restaurants in accordance with this section below, recreational use, religious institutions, and mixed-use structures. So we have those defined, and then these are the different design requirements for the lake adjacent. We have the boundary map. And then for the lake proximity, very much, very similar, or actually the same. But what was our difference here? Oh, we have a couple additional uses on the lake proximity that can be utilized. And then kind of to wrap it up, on as far as my overview here, the Lake Commercial Overlay District, that includes, so as you can see, the lake adjacent and the lake proximity, that allows for restaurants. And then if you wanted to have a bar or apply for a bar or tavern or motel and hotel, you would have to come back through the rezoning process and receive approval from the Planning Commission and the City Council to have that overlay district, basically layering it on top of the either CL1 or CL2 district that you are zoned already. The CLX can only go on top of, can only be layered on top of the CL1 or the CL2. And so that kind of alleviates the concern of somebody utilizing a more intrusive use without it going through the process of informing the neighbors and making sure that council, and planning commission are that everything's transparent and upfront, just with the sensitivity of the lake being 94% developed residentially, and being open to allowing some commercial development as applicable. So with that, I'll stand by if there's any questions. Sorry, a lot of rambling.
That was almost about as long as me reading it off. But this is first reading, so we won't be taking any action, but we do have 3 members that were on the committee from the council here tonight. Would any of you gentlemen like to add anything to that?
I will. Just a comment, because I've had a couple of individuals that have contacted me, and first of all, Brandy, I think you and Carla have been a great help to the people on this committee, and I know Councilman Jurens was on there as far as representing the council, and we had others. So thank you guys very much, because it was a more lengthy process, and then we have discussions, and then we kind of, not to steal somebody's phrase from the White House, but then we circle back kind of things. And so the end result, I think, is we are much farther along in what I think is acceptable zoning language than we were before we started. It's not perfect. I think somebody had mentioned that. It's not going to be perfect. We're going to have issues. This zoning doesn't stop anybody from coming in and asking for something, or asking for a standard commercial zoning that we already have in place. But the one question that was asked to me and is, okay, so then those that have already been zoned CL, well then whatever the new rules are will apply to them. And I said, no, it won't. And that was concerning to the individual. And as I explained to them, I said, here's the thing, and I'm just looking at it from my perspective as I have a responsibility to the whole of everybody, all parties. And that is, people make significant financial investments in development, as they do buying a home at the lake or anywhere else. Those individuals, they should have a right to do what was allowed for them to do at the time that they got their zoning. and some of them are already past much change, but they'll live with, because it's a closed zoning, they'll live with that now till at some point it might change, I guess. But for now, whatever it was approved at, that's what they will be able to do. And I want people to understand that, because this doesn't change what happens at those 3 locations. Whatever they were approved at, that's what their options are. And we're really looking at a going forward basis. Any new properties that would ultimately potentially get approved. And I just wanted to say that, because I know there's some people that were thinking, oh, this is good, it's gonna change. It's not gonna change them. And I think that's important for the public to know that, so.
Okay, Councilman Danforth. Councilman Peters, you got anything to add? Councilman Jurgens,
I
you
do.
got anything? Okay, go ahead, Councilman Jurgens.
Coming in loud and clear, am I?
Yep.
I'll add to Councilman Danforth's remarks. And the area, the subject that he's talking about is probably, I have to agree with about 99% of the work that was done here. This is one area that I have an ongoing concern, along with the people that called Councilman Danforth, also the neighbors that live around these properties, and some of the things that they will be looking at in the future. And it really comes down to one, the ability to put a campground in there. And yep, they did it all by ordinance, they did it all by the rules. But right now, it looks like they are allowed to set up a trailer park, so to speak, with skirting around 10 by 24 homes that are sitting on, blocks. It's like, but in the big scheme of things, there's so much good going on here that I hope that some of the rules in the future don't get bent. Those rules were bent a little bit to let our city and our lake look like that. And I just hope that we continue to move forward in a responsible way. I hope work with Brandy's department, with enforcement, about continuing to make that area look good, free of looking like a small trailer court. And, that's just not the way a majority of the people in our community want the lake to look like. And I know there's a few that do. That's okay. But I'm not going to agree with you on that. So all said and done, and yeah, tonight's not the final vote, but for now and in the future, there was a ton of work done in the trenches on this ordinance change. Carla, Brandy, Councilman Danforth, the 3 planning commission members, Councilman Peters. I mean, there was work done in the trenches, and it wasn't easy, especially for someone like myself that, is like a normal, everyday person. I haven't been on planning commissions. I haven't dug in to ordinance and zoning rules. I know a little more now, but the amount of expertise that we had from people like Bonnie Oletsky, who's been on the planning commission for a long time. She's an appraiser. Mike has been on planning commission, city council. The thought that they put on in these Blake Dolly, tons of, just on and on and on. Todd, Kyle, coming from development. I mean, there was tons of good work here. So that's what I'd like to focus on, and thank those that were involved in this, and will be voting in good faith and on this moving forward in the future. So thanks for your time here tonight. Enjoy.
Thank you, Councilman Jurgens. Councilman Shetty.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, and thank you, all your guys' comments and your work. on this, everybody that's been involved. I have one point of clarification, I guess, on the point that Councilman Danforth brought up and Councilman Jurgens. Just making sure we have, equal scales, I guess, if you will, compared to other, different, how we've got R1, R2, R3, commercial, industrial. I guess my question is, maybe for you, Ms. Hanton, if we have an R1, someone purchases as property, it's R1, and they have developed it, and yet there's more development to be done. Maybe they bought it 20 years ago and had that established as R1. And then we change some of the parameters of an R1. They don't have to follow suit with the new parameters. They stick with the old parameters from 20 years ago. I just want to make sure that that's how that works with the other zoning districts.
So no, they're not like grandfathered to what the old ordinance was. If the ordinance is amended, then everybody's current with the current ordinance, or everybody is required to follow the current ordinance. So like the reason now with the CL, the original one that we're closing, the only way that can really be reserved, so we're closing it so no one else can zone using that district, but we're allowing the people that had made it, made their development investment with that district being available, that they are technically grandfathered. But if we, in the future, if we'd rezone an R1 property or amend the R1 district so that, well, kind of like we did, we've changed some minimum lot size requirements and setbacks and all of that, that is what becomes effective.
Thank you for that. So to me, and maybe I'm understanding this wrong, it sounds like we have a different rule for the CL zoning on this one versus all the other zoning districts, because we're going to grandfather them in where we don't do that in other districts, zoning districts. So I guess that's where just want to make sure I get some clarity on this and how we're doing this as a council.
So R2A is also a closed district that nobody else can zone. Nobody can propose to be zoned R2A. That's the single family attached residential. And that was actually to reserve all of the kind of existing neighborhoods that were not going to be meeting the R1 requirements when that was created, but they were, developed as single family homes. So then that district, so we have done it before with R2A.
Councilman Danforth?
Yeah, Councilman Shoddy, just to explain just a little bit as well, because it was part of, your question, I know where you're going with your question, it's a good question, and it's one that we considered. We've got 3 that had applied and received the original CL zoning, correct?
Yep.
One of those projects, the Stony Point project, is a very sizable development that's still in its earliest phases, and there's reasons why it hasn't went along like maybe it was originally thought that it would. But there was a commitment that was made years ago for them that that put much of what they're doing into action, and so they've had to take a look because of the economy and other things that are going on, interest rates, whatever it is, to work within the parameters that were established for them. And, I somewhat liken it, so to speak, to that whole land area out by the ice arena. That's a large investment on somebody's part there, putting infrastructure in, putting everything in there. For us to go in there and dramatically change those rules on them now when this is in its early stages, we felt was wrong. We felt that we have to be able to make a commitment to those. I think it's different when somebody's buying a lot and it's zoned R1 versus a large development. And our feeling there is that we need to step up and we need to be responsible for the commitment that was made, which is a many multi-million-dollar commitment on their part. So then the question was, well, can we do it for one and not all of them? The other 2 are sizably less in overall size. I would venture guess, well, the one that's by Prairie Winds is, for the most part, developed.
Yep.
It's done. Now, that couldn't evolve differently. And then the one on the north side of the lake, I suppose, could change a little bit up there. They got the land area that they could. But we thought, how do we do 1 out of 3? And so that's where we said, okay, we had a lot of discussion on this, and I know Councilman Jurens was concerned with this part, and I don't blame him, because I was concerned with it, but we're trying to figure out how to do it right, how to be fair. Because there really is, I think when people make that kind of a commitment, there really is a fairness issue here. There's a responsibility issue, and that's really where this one was at. So.
Follow up, Councilman Shetty?
And thank you for that explanation. Would there be wisdom in writing in there some sort of a 5-year or give it, because I understand, because it's still in the early stages, that development, you were talking, the one particular development's in its early stages and there's more work to be done. So, but again, to try to keep things in fairness, do we try to have it to where we can work with, let them work through what they've got to do, but have like for example, a 5-year, line in the sand, if you will, to finish up. Well, I'm just throwing that number out there. Sunset. Sunset, sure. So that way, then we're kind of if when rules change in 6 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever, that those properties aren't grandfathered in. So from looking long term, short term, absolutely. What can we do short term to help them get their development moving forward and kind of accomplish what they were desiring to do? However, is there a way to put a sunset on it, as you will? So I'm just putting that question out there for council.
Could I provide an answer, Pat?
Manager Hanton.
Thank you. So sunsetting is more so a option with conditional uses, but zoning, it's not an option to look at it that way. So if somebody came in and was asking for a conditional use, or if somebody received a conditional use and then that use had went away for over a year, then we consider that sunsetting. That then it goes away, they'd have to come back and ask for it again. So there's conditional uses with this property that, like once they sunset, then they'd have to come back and ask for them again.
Follow up?
Yep, and thank you. I'm just putting this out there for conversation for us to think about, and the committee already has been thinking about this. That's obviously, appreciate your input on this, Councilman Danforth and others, but I'm just still processing this myself as far as what is the proper way to do this. So I'm
I'll make clear too, so the existing campground that's at Stony Point, that had a conditional use. Hold on, our campground's permitted. We moved, I think that they are permitted. Yeah, never mind.
Okay, that is first reading.
You have an opening?
Go ahead.
You have an
Councilman Jones.
opening?
Go ahead, Councilman Jones.
So yeah, Brandy's on the right track. It was a permitted use, a campground, and it's cool. I mean, it was all done by the rules, other than maybe a quick explanation to Mike has brought up, and respect this a ton, and really respect the investment that someone put a lot of time, money, and effort into these developments, and they deserve some. I come from the side of this. They deserve some protection, but I'd like to also respect the many landowners, neighbors, and the users, the public users of the lake, to also have an explanation. I've had the explanation. I don't quite get it, and I don't quite agree with it, and that's okay. I'm not smart enough sometimes to get it right away, but I'd like a quick explanation from Brandy to just let the public know the little bit of squeaky language, I'll call it, in some sort of HUD definition. In HUD is the federal program for providing housing, urban development, I believe is the initials. Not an expert in that either, as you can tell. But how there was just a little bit of language and a little bit of a squeak room on how you could get a tiny home / trailer house into a campground in there. As you can tell, I'm sticking up for those that have invested tons of money, millions of money as individuals in properties, and they get to look at this now.
Yes, thank
Manager
you,
Henning.
Councilman Jurens. So as it was alluded to, the campgrounds, and so what has been placed there that appear as tiny homes, they are registered as RVs and they are movable. So it's kind of the difference of if you're pulling in an ice castle or this type of unit, that it is considered an RV or a trailer. And then the other thing about the campground language is that it just can't, the units or the camper cannot be utilized for more than 180 days out of a year, so it doesn't become a primary residence. But there's no language about the camper itself moving. So those are all things that we can look at potentially if we want to. Obviously, the ones that are placed there, like, they're not tiny homes because they don't have a permit. There's no, like, they're not condo platted, so people can own the land or whatnot. So they are really, it's a campground, and instead of looking at actually like what your typical camper or RV would look like, you're looking at a tiny house looking camper.
So we're just gonna go by what federal rules really regulate them as a RV. And that's all we can go by. So I understand Councilman Jern's concern there, but they are a registered RV. And yes, I also did check on that,
Well-
because I know there was some questions about whether or not they had to be moved every 160 days. They do not. They can only be lived in for 160 days. Councilman Jerns?
Thanks, Randy. So, yeah, it's interesting. They act like a camper. We treat them like a camper. But if the community starts seeing a mess with these, what is, my question would be, it doesn't need to be answered tonight, but my question is, what kind of work needs to be done to now consider them a camper, as long as they got in there that way, to not abide by the 180-day rule, which is 6 months, which, it just makes sense as a campground. But, we will cross that. We're talking about some really, really good progress on commercial lake and development around Lake Kempesky and Lake Pelican. And so, I don't want to get into the trenches anymore on this. It's tons and tons of progress here. And I'll agree with Danforth's opening comments. We've come a long ways from the wild, wild west of what it was. Thank you.
I'd like to take this time to thank everybody that was involved in it. There was a lot of time and effort from city staff, 3 council members, 3 members of the Board of Adjustment Plan Commission, countless hours. How many meetings did you guys have? Can't count that high? 10? At least it wasn't up to a dozen, so. But I would like to personally thank everybody that was involved in that, because they put a lot of time and effort, and with Ms. Hanton's staff that worked on this diligently, and I think we came out with, nothing's ever going to be perfect. There's always going to be room for improvement, but I think this is as close to perfect as perfect will be. So with that, if there's nothing else, we'll move on. We have no reason to have public hearings or second readings, so we'll move to other business. We'll go to approval of Resolution 25-09, resolution establishing water main and sanitary sewer cost recovery for water main and sanitary sewer installations for the taxiway and ag area improvement project number 2227. City Engineer Peterson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is the cost recovery I mentioned with the egg spray project. It's the portion that's not eligible. There's roughly $431,000 worth of water and sewer work, and this cost recovery will split it among 4 future egg spray areas, which I have shown on the screen. With that, I guess I'll stand by for questions.
I'll look for a motion. Motion by Danforth, seconded by Shetty. Any other discussion? Councilman Danforth?
Well, there we go. How is that recovery achieved? The $107,000 per, do they pay it up front? Do they amortize it over a period of time and do they pay property taxes on this? Or is it
I would guess that they,
because they don't on the building, but not the property. Right. So, Justin, do you know, how will they, is this something that they pay back up front? Is this paid back over a period of time? How is the recovery?
The cost recoveries are paid up front. When the building permit is applied for, before it's issued, then the cost recovery is paid.
Good, good.
follow up? Anybody else? Seeing none, Interim City Manager Bob Zine, please do the roll.
Okay. Jurens? Jurens?
Hang on. Yes.
Peters?
Aye.
Shetty?
Aye.
Tupper?
Aye.
Danforth?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we'll move on to item 12B, authorization to proceed with the bidding of the Wolf Exhibit renovation project and accept a donation from Lake Area Zoological Society in amount of $431,431.94. Director Roddick from Park and Rec.
Good evening, Council, Deputy Mayor. The item before you is, as you read, to request approval to proceed with the bidding of the Wolf renovation project and to accept the donation from LAZS. Just a couple of things, just to kind of encapsulate the project. This would be a complete renovation of the entire exhibit, which would include running appropriate utilities to a new wolf den building, the fencing around that area, upgrade that to proper standards, and a visitor viewing area. The zoo exhibit is one of the more popular exhibits at the zoo, or the wolf exhibit is one of the more popular exhibits at the zoo. And I just really wanted to highlight the fundraising efforts with LAZS. That's representing, roughly 60% of the total project. When we originally requested this in the '24 budget, we knew that the project was going to cost more than $300,000. At that time, it was as much a challenge to the Zoological Society to raise the additional funding, and they have come through with flying colors. Not only them, but the fundraising they've done, all the individual donations from, people in the community, businesses, what have you. So with that, I can let Stacy speak to the impact on operations.
A big part of this is to make our staff more efficient. Currently, to clean in the wolf yard, it takes 2 keepers to go out there because we can't lock them in. So with this, we can lock them in and 1 keeper can go out and do any kind of yard maintenance we need. So that'll save us quite a bit on staff timing. We're looking to make everything more efficient across the board with the building. So it should hopefully cost less to operate that exhibit overall.
Look for a motion. So moved by Shetty, seconded by Danforth. Any other questions? Councilman Danforth?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tupper. Couple questions. Was this an actionable item on for us to regain our AZA accreditation?
They didn't actually look at it because they knew we were going to renovate it. In order to bring wolves back and house them properly, it will come back and be brought up. We want to do this because we want wolves and we want to take the best care possible for the wolves as efficiently as possible.
Okay, but it wasn't a line item per se on that, what was required?
No.
Okay, so my next question, and this is probably an unfair question, but I'll ask anyway. Since we've received that, I'm kind of veering here a little bit, Mr. Tupper. So, since we received that report and where we lost our accreditation, have we sat down and said, okay, here's everything it would take from every aspect, people, structures, whatever, and roll that up into an estimated cost that it would take to regain our accreditation?
I can answer part of that. Honestly, what we had presented to council, I believe it was the December 9th work session, kind of encapsulated most of that. We're not looking at adding any additional staff, so the staff numbers would stay fairly static. We're looking to actually reduce the collection to balance the collection size to the staff. As far as the capital required to get us there, those items are currently in the 10-year plan.
Okay, was that, Dustin, I apologize, was an estimated dollar amount in your presentation that you're referring to? I know the items were listed.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't believe the items were broke out. I don't think we specifically put the numbers in that presentation because those are the capital improvement dollars that are identified over the next, 3 to 5 years in the 10-year plan. I can get you those numbers.
Well, I think we'll be having a discussion on prioritizing capital dollars. I think it would be good for us to understand in today's terms what's it going to take for us to get that accreditation back. I get people that mention that to me, and to be honest with you, it's very negative, and that is the city hasn't supported the zoo, and the people don't understand. They really don't understand how much money and effort goes into running that zoo and what really has. This is another example of where we are supporting it, not only as a city but as a community. The food prep building was $1.4 million a couple, 2-3 years ago, part of which was us and part was, I believe, through the Zoological Society. So there's a lot of those things that are taking place. And I know that you guys have had discussions about, the sustainability, and I thank you for doing that, because that's such an important part of where this entity, it's a valuable entity for us. But I think it would be good for us to understand in today's terms, what would it really take to get back into the accreditation mode?
We have that
in terms of
information.
dollars.
Yeah, and primarily it's capital dollars. Like I said, the staffing dollars, are essentially going to remain static what they are now. So it's those capital dollars, and those are readily available in that 10-year plan.
Yeah, if you could maybe aggregate that for us during that meeting would be nice, I think.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? I'd just like to take this time to thank you guys for your hard work. Watertown, the zoo in Watertown wouldn't be near what it is today if it wasn't for the Lake Area Zoological Society. And not only them, but the individuals that have made an impact on that zoo over the years. So a personal thank you to those guys, and thank you guys for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Councilman Tupper?
Yes, sir.
With good collaboration with community support and the city, we like to continue this and continue this in the future. Now, when I put my business hat on, that's when I get in trouble. because, it's so good to see that when the taxpayer asks the questions like Councilman Danforth was talking about, it's so much better to say, yes, the zoo the zoo gets more support, gets more people coming through the doors, gets more donors if we have these things available. And there, in the long term, is much less of an investment, an ongoing investment for city tax dollars. So, I think that's an important number to know when we have the discussion that's coming up on a work session.
Anybody else have anything? Interim City Manager Bob Zine, would you take the roll?
Okay. Jurens?
Aye.
Peters?
Aye.
Shetty?
Aye.
Tupper?
Aye.
Danforth?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we'll move on to C, approval of a budget supplement in the amount of roughly $70,000 for a replacement tank. A replacement of, I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but 100 LL fuel tank. Ian Merriweather, our airport director.
Thank you.
Tell me what that stands for, so.
It's a fuel tank, 12,000 gallons for 100 low lead. It's for
lead, okay.
aviation fuel. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, right. So, sorry. The initial cost is going to offset, it's going to be offset by insurance. However, due to the timeline and operational need, this is why I'm coming forth to ask for a budget supplement, simply for just timeline purposes.
Okay, I'd look for a motion in a sec. Got all kinds of them, so however you record that, so who gave me the first?
I'll do the first.
First for Danforth, second for Shetty. Any other questions? Councilman Danforth.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think it would behoove us to explain this to the public as to why this is coming, the event that occurred, if you would, please.
Yeah, we had a small explosion in the tank. We'll have a cause and origin investigator there on site on Wednesday. So at the present moment, we don't know exactly what caused it. However, the tank's been drained. WFR was great. Staff was great. Everyone executed properly. And luckily, no one was hurt and no other structures were damaged. Everything was contained. But unfortunately, we did lose the tank. Fortunately, it wasn't a catastrophic failure. Could have been much worse, but.
Anybody else? I'd just like to thank all the staff, the airport staff, the fire rescue. That could have been a very huge catastrophe. I mean, we were very lucky that didn't, I mean, how a fuel tank kind of explodes. You don't have it lined up next to all the other fuel tanks and nothing else happens. So thank everybody for their hard work. So Interim City Manager Bob Zine.
Okay. Jurens?
Aye.
Okay. Peters?
Aye.
Shetty?
Aye.
Tupper?
Aye.
Danforth?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we will move on to item 12D. Authorization for the interim city manager to sign a 2024 annual municipal separate storm sewer system MS4 report for submittal to the Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources. City Engineer Peterson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is the annual report for the city's MS4 program. Every community over 10,000 people is required to have an MS4, and MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer Systems. There's 6 different parts to the MS4 that we're reporting on: public education, outreach, public participation, illicit discharge detection and elimination, construction site runoff, which are the SWIPs, post-construction stormwater management, and pollution prevention. And this is annual report, so this gives authorization for interim city manager to sign it and submit it. Thank you.
Do you have any other questions? Ready. Okay. Motion by Councilman Peters, second. And second by Councilman Shetty. Any other discussion? I got ahead of myself, excuse me. Seeing none, I think we can do a voice vote. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye. Motion carries. Well, we're down to finishing up here, so we will, any council member announcements, introductions of topics for future discussion?
I got
Councilman Peters?
Okay, thank you. I was just going to comment a little bit on the city manager search from earlier discussion or an open forum. So my role has been liaison to the committee that the mayor put together. And it's been primarily myself and Reed that have been attending these meetings. And so Deputy Mayor Tupper said it earlier, but we really just got started. So I'm going to speak directly to some of the comments that Mr. Allen made earlier. And that is that it's true, this is not on the city's website yet. In fact, this is going to be on the city's website as soon as tomorrow. Interim City Manager Bob Zine is going to be in charge of that. And the Robert Half folks are going to be working with her. But what they've been doing right now is actually trying to handpick some candidates that they've had in their pool. So the benefit of hiring a firm like Robert Half is that they've done this before, and they've actually got some folks that they're familiar with that they're reaching out to. So a common practice would be LinkedIn, if you're familiar with that social media platform. They do a push on there. There's folks that they have in their Rolodex that maybe have expressed interest in leveling up to a community the size of Watertown, and they can reach out to those folks directly. So I have a report here. There's some names in here that they need to keep confidential, but I would just roll off some numbers here. So far they've had 70 candidates that they've been in contact with. 21 have expressed interest so far, and there's currently more in the pipeline. So I'd say that the progress is otherwise underway. We'll expect to hear more. We actually have a weekly call with the Robert Half folks on Tuesday mornings. Tomorrow is going to be canceled, unfortunately, but hopefully we can touch base with this group before the next council meeting so we can share some more. So I just maybe wanted to put out any concerns that there's no transparency. I think that this is pretty common for a job selection for this process to be taken, and things continue to stay on course. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we'll have more to report next week. Thank you.
Councilman Danforth?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tupper. I received, I think we may all have received an email from a lady that was expressing her concerns and frustrations with the litter that's accumulated over the winter months in and around our community. And ironically, the day before I got that, my wife and I were traveling down Highway 212 from east to west, and I mean, there was litter in the ditches everywhere out there. I mean, it looked horrible. But I understand, that's where we end up this time of year. I mean, we had what felt like a whole month of 40-mile-an-hour winds, which blows a lot of stuff around. Maybe we could just pray for a bunch of snow to cover it up for a while. But it really becomes an awareness issue. You know, there's places I walk around and it's like stuff gets stomped on and around and just left there. And we just need to encourage people to take pride in our community, you know, in their areas where they live or where they work. Help us be good stewards, because that does have an impact not only on those that live in our community, but certainly those that visit our community. It gives them an impression. So I know that Ms. Bob Zine was gonna maybe look and see what we could do from a city standpoint, but you know, it's vast. It's very significant when you get around the larger areas, the highways and the outskirts of town, and my goodness, it's there's a lot of it. So That's just kind of an FYI for the community. Let's see what we can do in the interim. Has anybody heard, are they gonna be doing the spring cleanup thing like they've done in the past? Is that, I haven't heard a word on that to know.
I don't have specific information on that group, but our Park and Rec department does put together kind of a cleaning crew of staff, but then also volunteers, and I know that's set to be sometime in April. And that's where they go through all the parks, so we do kind of handle that on the city side. But I haven't heard anything, I think it was it Litter, I can't remember what the name of that group was, but I haven't heard anything from that group.
That group, are you done?
I just got, so let's take the non-owned areas. Let's just take Highway 212, Highway 20, for example, where you have ditches. So you got large right-of-ways, you get ditches, and we got really those areas have a unsightly accumulation of litter. Whose responsibility is that? Does that fall on the adjacent landowners? Does it fall on the highway department? Does it just fall on the good graces of volunteers? How do we enforce that? Because that's really what this young lady was asking, is we need to have the right ordinances and laws. We got to enforce them. We got to encourage. But I'm not sure how we do that when we don't know, who threw what out or where it blew in from. But the bottom line is historically, this happens every spring. But we end up getting to it, and I hope there's an effort again this spring that does it, because that's really proven effective for us in the past, so.
I would, back before COVID, Arlene Brandt Jensen used to run the Spring Clean Green or something like that. And what it was is she used to organize it, but it wasn't just city organizations like myself and some of the employees where I work. We used to do a strip of Highway 212 and back. Everybody kind of adopted different, there was a lot of service organizations that did it. A lot of the businesses, they'd get their employees together and do it. City had a drop-off site at the street department where you could take your trash back. I can't remember where they picked up the garbage bags and vests and all that. I think it was here at City Hall. But when the pandemic hit, that kind of got pushed off onto the wayside, and it's never been reestablished, which I would like to see that get reestablished again. I know I visited with former city manager Mack about it once. We had the idea of maybe just getting a trailer instead of, in a group could come out and check out the trailer. We'd have everything inside the trailer. So, but we do need to get something going again. So, but the reason that did go away was the pandemic, and the groups did a great job when they did it. So maybe that would be a goal that one of us want to take on and see if we can get it started again, or see if we can get a organization in town to take it on and see if we can get it started again. So I don't think the cost of the city was a whole lot. But then they could pick up all their garbage, take it and drop it off at the street department. It was disposed of from then. So, any other questions? City manager report. Oh, come on there. We do have a reason to go into executive session. I don't look for any action to be taken. I look for a motion to go into executive session. Councilman Shetty, second by Councilman Peters. We are in executive session.